Looks like we're ready. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members, officers, members of the public, and hopefully people who are watching over the internet to this meeting of the Planning Applications Committee. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Jonathan Quinn.
Thank you. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. As the meeting was held last week, the minutes haven't had time to be digested, so we'll deal with those at the next meeting along with these. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does any member have a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest in any of the issues we are discussing this evening? I know I have had phone calls and emails regarding the Mindenhurst development. Councillor Glowett?
An email about the Yockley Close back in June, I think it was.
Councillor Noble?
Thank you, Chair. Email on the Mindenhurst development.
Yeah. Anyone not? No? Councillor Wilson.
I haven't noticed any emails. I've got a lot of emails. I haven't noticed any about any of these applications. So they kind of influence me.
Lucky you. Okay. Next. Yes?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I'm not part of the decision-making body here, but I do have interests in the Yockley Close sector. I am a trustee of a additional needs school. I'm a trustee of a charity in South London that supports children with social and emotional well-being, and I'm also a governor of the local mental health trust. So just for transparency, I thought I'd put those down on the record, even though they're already on my declaration of interest.
And you're speaking in a moment or two. Application number 240521, 55 Yockley Close, Camberley. For this, we have 3 public speakers. I believe 1 is in the chamber. 2 are going to speak online, and Councillor MacDonald is going to speak as well. So, and Ian, I believe, is presenting also online.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to 55 Yockley Close in Camberley. The application is before committee as it was called in by Councillor Skipper on grounds that the proposal would be out of character with the surrounding area, noise and disturbance to neighbours, and traffic and congestion impacts. Planning permission is sought for the change of use of the dwelling from Class C3 to a Class C2 children's home. There are 3 updates on the application in the update pack. The incorrect High Court case was appended to the committee pack. This has been corrected and circulated to the members with the correct transcript. To clarify that the photos and plans at the end of Appendix C relate to the Birmingham City Council Committee report, not to the application at hand. And there's also been a change of wording to condition for securing the use of the site solely as a children's home. The application site is a 2-storey dwelling located at the end of a spur on the western side of Yockley Close. The site benefits from a rear garden and patio area, as well as a driveway to the front and of the site and a garage. The surrounding area is predominantly residential in nature, characterised by 2-storey detached dwellings. The spur on which the site is located serves 5 other dwellings. The dwelling is currently being used as a foster home. The proposal would provide children's homes for up to 5 children between the ages of 5 to 12. A children's home is a home run to provide care for children in the need of social services support. It would provide a safe and stable home environment for the children placed there, rather than a more institutionalised setting for their care. There is national and local need for such homes. This is highlighted in a response from the Corporate Parenting Commissioning at Surrey County Council. Their response goes further, highlighting that at the moment, Surrey County Council are having to place a large proportion of children who are looked after in such homes outside of the borough, moving them away from their local support networks. Further to this, a ministerial statement has highlighted that the planning system should not be a barrier to such homes. Whilst a proposed home would operate largely in a similar way to a normal family dwelling house, the High Court judgment in North Devon versus the Secretary of State has established that such homes are classed as Class C2, not Class C3 use. Just to move on to the High Court judgment, Class C3 is split into 3 categories. There's Class C3A, which is your typical family dwelling house where the occupants live as a family unit, and this would include foster homes. Class C3B is for small care homes where the care is provided and occupants live together as a household, and that's the important distinction here. Class C3 is a smaller HMO for such as student accommodation. The judgment establishes that children cannot form a household, and therefore the use as a children's home is not Class C3B use, but Class C2 use, and therefore a change of use is required. Local authorities have a duty under the Children's Act to provide children in their care with the following: accommodation, to maintain the child in all other aspects other than accommodation, i.e. sort of educational or clinical support, set out ways in which the child can be accommodated, and there is a general duty to secure sufficient accommodation for the looked after children, and that local authorities should take strategic action in respect to those children and to provide them with accommodation within their local authority area in the interests of the welfare of the child. As has been stated by Surrey County Council's Corporate Parenting Commissioning, there is a shortfall of such accommodation and children are being placed outside of the local authority boundaries. The application would contribute to the need for such accommodation and would help secure placement for children in the local area in close proximity to their local support network. As a borough council, there is a duty on the council to assist Surrey County Council in their duties in respect to social services and the provision of such accommodation for children. The proposal therefore seeks planning permission to change the use of the dwelling from Class C3 to Class C2 children's home. The dwelling would have no external or internal alterations and would remain used largely as a dwelling house for children with carers providing support. There'll be 5 children placed at the house. There would be 2 carers on site at all times for the 24-hour period. The shifts of the carers would change at 10 a.m. between 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. each day. There'd be no waking shift as the children would not require any significant needs, and one carer would sleep at the dwelling overnight to be on hand should any need arise. As the use would not be a dwelling house, there would be no loss. As the use would still be, as the use would still be used essentially as a dwelling house, there would be no loss of the dwelling. And it's important to note that the only reason that this type of development would not be a Class C3 use is that the children themselves cannot form a household. A similar approach to this type of development was approved in Birmingham, which has been appended in Appendix C. There'd be no alterations to the dwelling. It would have 6 bedrooms, 1 for each child and 1 for the carer staying overnight. As such, there'll be no harm to the character of the area, as there are no extensions to the dwelling proposed or any other alterations, and the use is similar to existing uses within the area. In addition to this, because there is no operational development, the proposal would not result in harm to the amenity of the neighbouring occupiers in terms of a loss of outlook, loss of privacy or loss of daylight. In terms of noise, given the similarities between the existing and proposed use, it would not result in any adverse noise impacts. Environmental Health have raised no objection, and the condition securing the noise management plan is recommended should any complaints regarding noise are received, and this would lay out the procedure and mitigation required if needed. The site has ample parking to the front for up to 4 cars, plus a garage on the site, and as well as a driveway. Highways have raised no objection in terms of the parking capacity and trip generation of the use and its impact on the highway network. The dwelling also has sufficient garden space to provide outdoor space for the children who reside there. And then just to go through the photos, these photos relate to the front of the dwelling house and demonstrate that there's plenty of on-site parking for the proposed use. The next set of photos are of the street scene and the wider area. The photo on the left is looking towards the application site from the end of the spur road. The photo on the top left out of the two, again, is looking towards the application site from the spur road, and that was taken today. The photo on the right as well looks north along Yockley Close, and the photo on the bottom there looks south along Yockley Close, and that was taken back in 2022. And then the next set of photos just show the garden area behind the house, and on the right hand side that shows sort of the patio area that's located behind the garage area, behind the house itself. So in summary, the application would provide a much needed children's home, ensuring children in Surrey are placed within the local authority area and close to the support networks. The proposal would not result in the loss of the dwelling house, but rather just alter who would be occupying the dwelling house. It would not result in harm to the character of the area or neighbouring occupiers' amenity. There'd be no significant impacts on the operation of the highway network from the proposal, and it would provide sufficient parking on the site. As such, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, we have 3 public speakers on this item and 1 councillor, Councillor MacDonald. First of all, Mr. Alex, I think it's Mr. Alex Constantine, if you would like to take the public speaker's seat. Yeah. You will have 4 minutes. The time starts when you're ready. After you have spoken for 3 minutes, there will be a notification. You've got a minute to go. And at the end of your time, members may ask questions.
Absolutely.
And that can take as long as it takes. Okay, so over to you.
Honourable members of the committee, thank you for giving the community of Yockley Close a voice. The application was made with a narrow scope, specifying the age and maximum number of children to be housed. The consultation with the public and other bodies was conducted on that basis. However, the recommended approval would allow the scheme to proceed with the broadest scope possible. We strongly object because the approval conditions are disproportionate to the application made. Moreover, the assumption threading through this report is that there is no change because the occupants would continue to live as a family. I would like to point to the judgment, Devon, in your annex. The case establishes that a children's home does not operate equivalent to a family and does not form a household, points 14 and 19 respectively. We have therefore not inspected the actual operational impact. Further weight is given to this by a case of Musquet and Cochrane in 2023, showing that our restrictive covenant does prevent the operation of a children's home. Therefore, we need to re-examine this application on the true effect this change will have. I would also challenge the committee to ask why the planning officer did not consult the police. Crime was called out as a reason for objection, and DM9 Article 5 sets the reduction of crime and fear of crime as a planning principle. In the planning application in Birmingham, in your annex, the police was consulted and did object. The location of the children's homes are not supposed to be identifiable for safeguarding. Yet, the applicants have put a picture of the house with its unique architecture on the internet for the last year, making it the top hit on the web, searching for children's homes in Heatherside, putting it on the map for criminals exploiting vulnerable people. Those actions have set the character of the property apart because criminals don't care if the characteristics of the property change. They have internet too. And our neighbour, as a result, in our cul-de-sac, was a victim of burglary only this year. Within the Western urban character area, Heatherside is highlighted as completely unique in the character different from the rest of the area, with the Avenue of Redwoods, a particular landmark running through Yockley Close. Keeping cars off the road through driveway parking and parking courts is called out as a key feature to reduce the impact of cars on the local amenities and make the avenue particularly beautiful. We have seen this in a planning application in Borough of Handburn refused a conversion to a children's homes in August 24, citing that in real terms, traffic increases and parking is made worse, with the commissioning officer calling out that even though the application stated only 2 staff needed to be present, the reality is different. We have seen this in practice. Leading up to the application deadline, when the applicants started to mobilize their business, the driveway was full, overspilling over repeatedly into the cul-de-sac and the main Yockley Close for the majority of the working day, spoiling the character of the area. In summary, we feel the approval conditions are too broad. It feels that the report has taken an operational assumption by a business just starting up at face value. And as a result, we feel the report does not give sufficient weight to recognizing the uniqueness of Heatherside or the impact to our community. In reality, more likely, this approval will be to the detriment of the character, will disrupt the community, will infringe of our legal rights, and raises real concerns about crime. Members of the committee, on the facts grounded in law, I implore you to listen to the community and reflect whether the recommendation for approval is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, anyone have any questions for Councillor Garrett?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. 2 questions. You referred to the restricted covenant, which is also in the papers. Is that something that every resident has signed up to and is responsible for? And I don't think it was in the papers. I might have missed it if it was. What does the covenant actually say?
I don't have the exact wording altogether, but it is effectively the covenant that you are only allowed to use the properties for private residential use only, and we should not suffer any trade.
And do you know who owns that covenant?
The covenant is on deed for most of the Yockley Close properties, definitely for all the properties that are architecturally equivalent to ours.
And the second question is, you mentioned about cars overflowing.
Yes.
For the lead up to the. So can you just elaborate on why there were cars? Was that because there's work being done, or was there just?
So obviously I don't know what was happening, but the way we experienced it in the neighbourhood is that leading up to the first deadline, the 55 Yockley Close appeared to mobilise their business. There were staff being shown around, and as a result, we saw that the cars were not just limited to the driveway. There was much more activity than that. It overflowed onto our cul-de-sac and the main Yockley Close area for the majority of the working day. What exactly happened, I obviously cannot tell. We do have pictures, if that is of interest, that we are not making this up. But that's why we felt that in practice, operationally, things were different to what was described in the application. Thank you for asking the questions.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. You said that the approval conditions are too broad.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples of these?
Well, the approval effectively states that granting approval on the condition that it's only used as a children's home. If you look at other applications, they are much stricter in the approval conditions, for example, specifying the ages of the children, the number of the children. The application was made for children aged 5 to 12, I think. So therefore, the impact assessment was based on what if you have 4 to 5 children of that age? Would the impact assessment change if the children were 16 or 17, for example? As a question. If we are not specifying the maximum number of children, then therefore my understanding would be that there could be many more children housed in there. And because with my limited understanding of how these things work, I understand that, for example, siblings, which is a particular interest to the applicant, from an Ofsted ratio perspective, because of the siblings trying to be put together, siblings count as 1. So therefore, if we're saying 5 children, but if all 5 children have siblings, does that, I don't know, but does that to me suddenly mean that there will be 10 children there? Not saying there would be, but I'm just asking, I'm just asking the question. So therefore, not making that explicit in the conditions exposes, or gives opportunity to expanding the business in ways that we may have not considered, and therefore would have then a much bigger impact than we ever thought it could. Yeah, thank you.
Any other? Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you. You referred to a connection with crime. Could you just expand on that a little more, because I wasn't quite clear on the point you were making?
So there's a couple of things there. The thing that I chose to speak about is in Heatherside, there is only, we were just counting about 24 houses that look exactly the same, i.e. the Yockley Close houses. My understanding is that children's homes should remain anonymous where possible. So if you go to other website of other children's homes, they don't specify which properties and where they are. They just specify things like children's homes in Surrey, for example. However, if I Google children's homes in Heatherside, Camberley, this area becomes a top hit. And the reality is that that does give opportunity to, for people that may want to, focus their attention on that area. Because there's only 20 houses that look exactly the same. If I have, a picture on the website that shows me a house, and I basically can narrow it down from Heatherside to 20 houses, that would give opportunity to people exploiting that. Right? And equally, if we take that topic a little bit wider, 2022's crime statistics show that a property occupied by a business is more likely to be targeted than a property by a private home, right? So as a result, by converting that and allowing a business to operate the property where previously it was a private home, it would suggest that it would increase the risk of crime.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have Sarah Linsell, I believe, coming online. Same rules apply.
Thank you.
You have 4 minutes. Starts when you're ready, and someone will warn you when you've got a minute to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sarah Linsell. I'm the owner of 55 Yockley Close, foster carer, a children's charity CEO and founder of Hygge. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I won't seek to repeat the issues covered in the planning report, which seem to have been addressed in a fair and balanced and comprehensive way. Thank you. It seems to me that there is one issue that remains, and that is it in keeping with the area? In other words, it's about how do we feel as a neighbourhood, a community, as society, about having vulnerable children close to where we live. We have lived in Yockley Close for 18 years, and in that time we've been lucky enough to bring up our own 4 children and have welcomed almost 30 children in care into our family. During this time, our neighbours have been kind and enabled us to do this. It is a special place to live, a safe place. It's the kind of place we would all want every child to have the opportunity to grow up in. And maybe it's hard to share that. The children we would like to look after need a home, to be loved, to be safe. They have had serious adverse childhood experiences when they were just little. Some have never been hugged or taken to the playground. Others still feel the hunger they experienced as babies every time they feel under pressure. Some will have been hit and others abused by those who are meant to love and protect them. This makes them the most vulnerable and deserving of children. They need the most special place in which to heal, the safest of places to be nurtured in. They need this place. But that would mean sharing it, and that's hard. The unknown is also hard. For some, the frame of reference for a children's home is Tracy Beaker. For others, it's Annie. For others, it's what's shown in the media. None of this is reality. If we were able to go ahead, we will be a private residence. We will be an ordinary family-like home with 4 children and 2 grown-ups who are highly qualified and trained to support children. A home where children can make a den in the woods, bake fairy cakes on a Saturday afternoon when it's raining, cozy up with popcorn and watch a movie together. Just ordinary. A home where children thrive. They want to go off to uni, have a career, build strong and positive relationships.
That's 40 seconds left.
But to go ahead, this would mean sharing our neighbourhood. And that is what we ask of you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. The previous speaker referred to the home as a business. You referred to it as a charity. Could you confirm for me, please, whether it's a not-for-profit organisation or whether it's actually a business? He also asked questions and brought up the matter of siblings. Is it possible that you would have up to 10 children in there, or is it absolutely limited to 5 and no sharing bedroom? So that's the second question. The other thing as well is that in the officer's report, he talks about 2 members of staff per 24 hours. My understanding from reading elsewhere in the paper is that it would be 4 members of staff. So 2 members of staff on site all the time. So it's just, if you could just clarify that for me. And I noticed on your website that you have another home that you run called Amblewood. And I just wondered if there had been any complaints from neighbours since that has opened, if it is open and a business, a charity already. So if you could clarify those 3 points for me, please.
Yes, of course. We are a social impact organisation, which means that any profit that is made either goes into our foundation, which is currently being registered with the Charity Commission, or is fed back into the organisation. So we're a social impact organisation. That is our purpose. No more than 5 children will live at their home. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a home, would it? It would be an institution. And that's exactly what we don't want to have. I'm sorry, what was your final question? Yes, there will be 2 carers staying there with the children. There wouldn't be 4, no.
So when you say 2, it's 2 at night, 2 during the day?
Yes.
So 1 per 12 hours? So it's 2 12-hour shifts. So
yeah,
there are 2 people on site all the time?
There are 2 carers on site all the time. And they take 24-hour shifts from 10 in the morning until 10 the next day, staying overnight as you would as parents.
Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. My question relates to the previous speaker's comment about advertising the home on the internet. I just want to get clarification on that, because obviously looked after children could come from any number of different families with obviously issues, and maybe we don't want the parents finding the children. So by advertising them on the internet locally, has that got a safeguarding issue?
Actually, it's planning that has caused that issue. It's going for the certificate of lawfulness or full planning, which highlights it as a children's home. That's actually what's announced it. I would be more than happy for this to be addressed in a more private way, because I think we should be safeguarding children. If the previous speaker would object to the photograph of the back of the house. I'm more than happy to remove that from the website. It makes no difference to us. It just gives an idea of the home in which children live. But actually, it's planning that exposes children.
Thank you. Can I make a suggestion that in future, if we get anything like this comes forward, we do not, I know we have to follow certain rules, but there is a safeguarding issue around this, and we need to be really careful about publicising the addresses of homes for exactly the reasons I've just highlighted. Thank you.
Yep, agreed.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. You mentioned that this would be a home for the children to grow up in. What would you imagine the tenure would be for the children that come through the home? Is it somewhere that will be their home for their entire childhood? Is that what you perceive, or is it a more short-term transient?
No, yeah, an ideal is always that children are settled, they're happy, and that they can stay as long as they're needed. And that is exactly what we want to do, so that children can stay together with their siblings and grow up in a family home. Just because they can't be with their birth parents, they should be somewhere else, settled and safe, and in county where they grew up.
So can I just ask a supplementary question on that? So yeah. I think it mentions in the report, and it was mentioned by the other speaker, that the application was for children between the ages of 5 and 12. Mm-hmm. In the scenario you just painted, what happens on the child's 12th birthday, 13th birthday?
I guess if children are settled and safe, everyone is quite happy for them to stay on because nobody notices they're there. If there have been challenges and the children aren't safe and settled, then that wouldn't be an appropriate place for them to be. So they would be moving at that stage. But our intent is that always children are happy, safe and settled, and it's a permanent home for them.
Okay.
Councillor Glowart.
So I was just, one of the issues that was brought up in the planning was, or the objections, was an increase in the traffic. I was wondering, is the plan, if the children can, to go to the local schools, which they would be able to walk to? Yeah, so the plan is to go to the local schools. And
some of these children will also be from the local area, so it's so that they can stay in their current school.
Right, okay. And I know Councillor Wheeler's just said, and I noticed, you didn't answer the question about the home, I can't remember, beginning with A, that we see on your...
Sorry, no, none of our homes are currently operational. We're a new organisation.
Right, so you don't know the impact of that at all? No. Right, okay, thank you.
Any more questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally, in terms of public speakers, Maddie McGuire? McGuire, thank you. Yes, on screen.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Maddie McGuire. I'm a support worker with a charity working with vulnerable young people. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. This was my childhood. Baking cookies, learning to ride my bike in the close, playing dress up, and later on making music in the playroom upstairs. I had the opportunity to be creative, to be curious, to learn, to laugh, to be loved. I felt safe. This is what every child should experience. But I know from growing up in a foster family that many children don't. They experience neglect, violence, and saw things only adults should. They didn't feel safe. I also learned that sharing my home, my things, and my parents wasn't always easy. But there is nothing more awesome than seeing a child go from being angry and frightened to putting on a silly show and dancing to cheer me up when I was studying. There's nothing more awesome than seeing siblings learning to enjoy being together, to come home from school giggling about what their teacher did that day. Nothing more awesome than them knowing they are loved and safe. All children deserve this, and no better place than 55 Yockley Close. I know this because I grew up here. I've come to know the strength and resilience of our community. This proposal isn't just a change in function for a building, it's a chance to strengthen our community. It's a chance, by supporting this proposal, we're offering vulnerable children the stability and sense of belonging they deserve. Right here, close to familiar surroundings and local schools, instead of being split up from their brothers and sisters and being placed far away from their roots. It means that these children are not left behind. This proposal will not change the character or appearance of our neighbourhood. The house will remain a home, a place where children live, play and belong, just as other children do in our area. And I think Surrey Heath is a place where everyone belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? No? Thank you. I think you've made your point. Now, Councillor MacDonald has expressed a wish to speak. Because you're a councillor, you get 8 minutes.
Before the clock starts, if you don't mind, Chair, could I just respond to Councillor Garrett's point, which is I have asked for the Head of Planning and myself, the portfolio holder, to meet to review how we're handling these types of cases, because it could also include domestic abuse refugees as well. So this is a wider policy issue that we need to look at. Thank you for forbearance.
Okay. Time starts when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Planning Committee members, officers and residents here in the Chamber or joining us virtually, thank you for the opportunity to address you. I won't list them all, however, across a wide spectrum of society today, people who were children in care, also called looked after children, have achieved great things. Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, no doubt many of you have iPhones on your person, was a child in care and later adopted. Neil Morrissey, TV actor of Men Behaving Badly renown, separated from his brother and brought up in a children's home until adoption. Seal the singer, especially of Batman Forever fame, lived in foster care from birth in Romford until the age of 4. Fatima Whitbread, Olympic silver and bronze javelin winner and gold world champion, was left to die alone in a flat at 3 months old, later brought up in care. Our role as councillors and also as residents is to make sure we support everyone to be the best they can be from whatever background, and with whatever challenges, to be a cohesive community in Surrey Heath. Councillors, officers and residents, I am not speaking for or against the application. As for something as important as this application, such positions are unhelpful in finding the right way forward for our community. However, as leader of the council, I want to try and give those with no real voice, a highly vulnerable and disadvantaged group, looked after children from our neighbourhoods, a fair hearing in your deliberations, in line with this council's Achieving Equity strategy principles, my party's values, and indeed my own personal beliefs. I want to address 3 areas: the planning aspects of this application and associated residents' concerns, where, as you know, you have a narrow remit of things that can be considered legally. The need for children's care homes in Surrey and why they are essential for building a cohesive community in Surrey Heath. The great place that Surrey Heath is, and Heatherside especially, with all the activities on offer for young people to grow up to be well-rounded citizens of the future. Firstly, planning aspects. I recognise the residents' concerns and empathise with the challenges of change and the unknown. We are all human after all, yes, even me. The reality is we cannot choose our neighbours, so provided people are not doing anything outside the normal boundaries of acceptability, we need to give and take to get along in the long run overall for our community. As an example, I'm often not super impressed with the noise as I try to get to sleep when the party house across the road from me, which hosts many young adults and sometimes their friends, enjoys the long summer nights and their outside garden bar. But that said, I'm sure 3 times a year, chainsawing may disturb their Sunday barbecues or long lie-ins. I suspect regular games of footy, basketball or rugby in our garden when my kids were young annoyed the odd neighbour at particular moments in time as well. However, it's part of growing up and stops as quick as it starts usually. A house such as mine with 4 adults and yes, 4 cars, albeit mine only comes out of the garage rarely, probably generates as much traffic and noise as is envisaged from this proposal, and at less attractive times of day, pre-dawn and post-dusk. Ultimately, we can't choose our neighbours, and whilst valid concerns, these items are not material in terms of the planning decision, given the assessment by the relevant Surrey Heath Planning and Surrey County Highways officers, and there is no planning reason for the committee to object to this proposal. Secondly, the need for children's care homes in Surrey, and especially in Surrey Heath. At the end of September this year, there were 972 children looked after in Surrey, with the state effectively acting as their legal parent, be it through various types of fostering provision, dedicated children's homes, or for older young people in supported lodgings. Perhaps to put things in perspective, given the relative size of the population in Surrey, Surrey Heath and Heatherside, and all things being equal, then 73 children in Surrey Heath and 6 in the Heatherside ward will be looked after children. Not all things are equal, I know, as Surrey Heath is the 7th most affluent borough in the country and Heatherside the most affluent ward in the borough, which from a socio-economic perspective means our absolute numbers are likely to be lower. However, we are also in a better state to support these young people than more than any of the challenging areas they may be exported to, including often far away outside the county. 37% of looked after children get moved more than 20 miles from their original locality in Surrey, which more often than not breaks or damages further any bonds with their closer extended family, their own friends or other role models, like teachers, for example, important to their social and emotional well-being. As we know, 20 miles on Surrey roads can take 30 minutes or an hour and a half. However, many of these families don't have cars nor the funds for complex public transport trips. Given that siblings, that is, brothers and sisters, particularly when their family group is larger, are often split up, the complexity of maintaining close relationships is severely challenged, even when the parents and extended family is capable to and desiring allowable contact. Only 13% of looked after children in Surrey are supported in children's homes, or 126 roughly, which equals about 9 for Surrey Heath proportionally. There are currently no children's homes in this borough. That's 0, nil, nada, which means we are exporting our vulnerable children elsewhere, far away from anyone dear to them. I think I can say for a fact that all of us were children, and I suspect many of us have children to cherish. Some lucky enough to have grandchildren to spoil, and others might have taken a role as auntie or uncle, be it adopted by friendship or blood ties. My hypothesis is we all know what makes a well-rounded adult citizen. It is a happy, safe and secure childhood, where not just a scrape on the knee from a skateboard accident is patched up, but emotional scars from traumas experienced are addressed with proper support and love. For most of us, when kids, it might be the family pet dying, not getting in the A-team for netball, or being dumped by a significant other of our dreams. For myself, it was a premature parental death and subsequent conflict in the family. Luckily, I was supported by school and sports role models, extended family and friends. For these vulnerable children, it's much more complex, with 46% being victims of abuse or neglect, and 30% separated due to family acute stress or dysfunction, none of which, as victims, is their fault, however, all treatable with the right help in the right environment, such as a warm and welcoming place to call home, surrounded directly by professional qualified carers and indirectly by the wider community stakeholders as envisaged by this proposal. Thirdly, the great place that Surrey Heath and Heatherside is to grow up in. I don't want to overemphasise this part, as I suspect your attention is waning. However, our young people are highly privileged today in Surrey Heath relative to the national average. We have a lot of really great parks to blow steam off in, fantastic open spaces to play in, more woodlands than anywhere in the country to explore, great primary and secondary schools to learn in, high levels of personal community safety, a wide spectrum of engaging faith communities, superb leisure facilities, and a comprehensive patchwork quilt of brilliantly organised clubs and societies. Be sport, music, creative arts, or attending Scouts or Guides, be your thing, to stand out from the crowd as a young person. Heatherside positively oozes this spirit of the borough of Surrey Heath in miniature, which is why it is a fantastic place for our vulnerable looked after children to be based, and indeed embraced by the community role models we have there in all aspects of civic society to create well-rounded citizens of the future. Lastly, achieving equity is not about providing the same to all. That's equality. It's about recognising we do not have the same start from the same place and making adjustments. In this case, by the Heatherside and Surrey Heath communities taking a role in supporting the development of these young people in parallel to their emotional and physical care within this social enterprise children's home, to ensure we build a cohesive society locally for the long term. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Members, we have heard arguments on both sides. Two hands have shot up. I think Councillor Wheeler was first. Questions for officers?
Thank you. It's just a comment, really, and some recommendations and adjustments to the conditions. If we're going to be consistent, the children's home in Verran... I am. Let me, I'll move this a little bit closer. It's unusual for me not to be able to project. Oh, that's a bit too close, isn't it? Don't know where to put it. So I think in order to be consistent, the conditions on the Verran Road children's application was that the ages should be limited up to the age of 17. And I would suggest that that adjustment is made on this application because at 18 you are an adult, and I think that we need to be consistent. There is talk in the paper around the limiting of the bedroom that overlooks neighbours. However, it may just be that the plans are too small for me to see, but I cannot see that bedroom identified on the plans, and I would suggest that we include another condition that says whichever bedroom it is, which is overlooking, and as mentioned earlier in the papers, is conditioned to be occupied only by carers that are within the building. And also within the conditions, we don't limit the number of children that can reside within the care home at any given time. And I think that condition should also be added as a condition to allay the fears of the neighbours around the sibling rule. There was the other thing as well is that noise management plan and the complaints procedure I didn't find particularly clear in the document, and I would suggest an informative that the complaints procedures that any complaints received should be published on a quarterly basis, and that a record should be kept and something around those lines. I will leave it to the chair, the vice chair and the local members to come up with appropriate wording. But at the moment, we have no visibility of those complaints that come in. And I'm quite sure that our enforcement officer would rather that the home were able to deal with that in a collaborative way prior to coming to committee. But certainly the amendments to those conditions would be my recommendation at this stage, if members are minded to support.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Thank you, Chair. So on the update report, there is a condition which limits it to up to the age, under the age of 18 as part of that condition. So that's already on there already.
It said up to 18 when I read it, but I'm sorry if I'm misreading it. And on the one on Verran Road, we said that the ages were limited up until the age of 17. So it's 12 to 17.
Under the 18, we've got on the actual update report. Under the age of 18, we've actually got on the update reports on condition 4. In regards to the number of children, yes, that can be added as a condition in terms of limiting it to up to 5 children as well. And in terms of, I think your last point in terms of the condition regarding where the carers sleep, that can be conditioned as well as part of the planning application. In terms of the noise management plan, yes, that is noted, and we can put an informative as part of the application as well.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think I'll start by saying I was chairing a governor meeting at Collingwood this morning, welfare and behaviour, and as part of that committee, the Looked After Children the lists comes to that committee, and reading about those children and the families that they live with and what they go through, I have nothing but the greatest respect for anybody that looks after a looked after child. So to be having a house like this sounds like a really good idea. I know that in this chamber, we've said a number of times, we've got to use this rather than this. And obviously we've only got planning things to think about, but this is an idea I think is a really good one. Obviously there are some concerns that the neighbours have brought up, and I think Councillor Wheeler's probably covered a lot of the points. I suppose for once I've only got one real concern, and it's the covenant, which is mentioned at least twice on the report. And it says there is a covenant which obviously was discussed in Chamber, and it says the covenant is not a material planning condition, which I get, but if there's a covenant in place, surely that's a legal entity and has to be taken into consideration in some way by some person. Now, I haven't got a copy of the covenant, I don't know, and it says, from what we understand, that it can't be running a business, and the greatest respect, this sounds like a business. So if I'm told that it's not a business and it's a charity and they're not going to make any money, then that's not breaking a covenant. But I would just like to cover off that a little bit more if possible.
I don't wish to put our legal officer on the spot, but could you just clarify the covenant points to Councillor Garrett from a legal point of view?
I mean, in this planning sphere, it shouldn't be a consideration. That is a civil matter, issue of planning of property law, and one between neighbours. Restrictive covenants come with a number of difficulties in enforcement. You can apply to an upper tribunal. I'm probably getting into the and I don't want to advise anyone, so I've got to be difficult myself. But that's an issue between neighbours and one for whoever has the benefit of it to enforce it. And I think that sits outside the remit of the council. As always, there's probably exceptions. I can't see it here.
So by the council, say, if we agree to the recommendation, we as the council are not putting ourselves in a position of causing ourselves any legal issues because the covenant, because it's something that's a civil matter that will have nothing to do with the council. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yes, we're not, as far as I'm aware, the beneficiary of the restrictive covenant, so there's no difficulty in that respect of us binding our estates team who manages our property portfolio and binding their hands by making this decision. So, yeah, private matter.
Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Sorry, yeah, it's just a supplementary question on that, and I'm quite sure, and I hope that we have done, but can I please be assured that the conditions that are imposed by the covenant are not in any way referenced with the original planning application for the buildings in Yockley Close? Because I think that's the only area isn't of grey. So if that covenant was part of a restriction on those properties, just as we have put a restriction on the building of sheds beyond a certain size in Deep Cut, it's an actual planning matter that is attributed to the planning application. So can you please reassure us that there is absolutely nothing on that original planning application that refers to this covenant, or what we're referring to as a covenant, i.e. it's not on there, so have we checked it?
It's not a restrictive condition on the original planning permission. Can I also ask, you asked earlier about a condition for a window.
It's not a condition for a window. Within the planning application, the applicant has given assurance that the particular bedroom that is overlooking is not going to be occupied by children, but will be occupied by a carer. It's a response, I think, that they've given in a document that they sent in to us. So it's the identification of that bedroom and adding that as a condition on this application.
Bedrooms 1 and 2, which are going to be for the carers.
Okay, we need it as a condition then, I think, because it's not. Thank you.
Cool.
Councillor Noble, then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, another question on the restricted covenant aspect. We've talked about business and we've had an assurance that this is a charitable organisation. Does charitable organisation not mean business, or does could the word business be interpreted as being relevant in this case rather than charitable? And if so, are we, as a committee, at risk of putting ourselves at risk if we were minded to grant the application or oppose the application on an appeal?
No, I think the two issues are being merged. So there's no sort of vicarious liability because we say we grant a planning permission that's against some other, private land law matter. So I think you've got to separate the two, and this is purely on a planning merits basis.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. Looking at the objections from the neighbours tend to come into under one category of just general sort of disturbance potential to them. So my thought on that is that the carers are going to be, the adult carers are going to be there on a 24-hour basis, and these people have been employed as carers. They're vetted legally, they're qualified, and they're trained to look after children. So they're likely to be, well, they will be responsible, act responsibly, be law-abiding, and so they'll generally be very good neighbours as people are kind of in loco parentis of the children who are there. But if we were to reject this, then presumably the house would become a family home for a large family, and the parents there, well, you don't have to be legally vetted to be a parent, or qualified or trained or anything, and quite a few parents don't act responsibly and don't act, not law abiding and would not be good neighbours. So I was actually thinking that approving this, rejecting this would likely potentially lead to more disturbance to the neighbours than approving it. I hope that makes sense.
I think so, yeah. Any other questions? Councillor Thompson.
This is a very easy, boring planning question. If we change the usage to allow this to go forward, should in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, they wish to return it back to a residential family dwelling, do we have to come back to planning, or does it have to come back through the planning process, or does it just revert back automatically?
On the update, we've updated condition 4, so they can revert back to a dwelling house at any time.
Councillor White.
I don't mind admitting I found this application a bit upsetting. As a product of a children's home when I was very young, I would have loved a situation like this with only 5, 6 children, whereas I was put into a children's home with over 50 children. So this sounds like absolute paradise. The family have said that they have fostered over the years, but there's been no complaints about that. Surely this is a similar situation to fostering. And some families I know, because my mother fostered eventually, and we had that person in our home for over 10 years. So whether you foster or whether you're a children's home, surely it's a similar situation with just this small number of children. As I say, I found this quite upsetting. So.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just a quick question on condition 1, which is the kind of standard condition that when we grant planning permission, the work has to start within 3 years. But there's not going to be any work on this. What does that mean? Does it mean that it has to start being used as a children's home within 3 years?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Councillor Garrett.
Still taking into consideration, obviously, what the residents are obviously concerned about. Who for want of another word, polices that there are only 5 children that are staying in the house and they are under the age of 18?
I mean, that would be via the condition, and if there's a breach of that condition, then we would enforce against it. So that would be the policing of the actual.
So someone would have to complain that they.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Councillor Omani.
Good evening. The application to provide a home up for 5 children, I have 3 children. They had sleepovers all the time. Does this provision allow for that?
No, it doesn't.
So those children are not allowed to have any outside social life brought into their home. Is that correct?
Not overnight. So they would, if it's to do with the amount of children living there, is that not right?
Sleepovers.
Sleep.
Yeah. Sleeping over kids outside of the care.
So we're going to limit to 5 children can sleep there.
Yes.
So they can have parties. They can't have sleepovers if they're at their maximum.
I think the question that is asked by Councillor O'Mahony is can we allow people to come over to the actual house and but not have sleepovers? I think that's the question. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was going to say, can I come in? I think we're looking at how a home should be run, and I don't think any of us are experts in the running of children's homes. I would have thought that if a child has come from a challenging environment, it would be unlikely that they would in that environment be having sleepovers anyway, just from a safeguarding point of view. I think what we're saying is it's a maximum of 5 children that can reside at the property, and I would suggest that restriction is sufficiently is sufficiently well worded, whereby if somebody was staying overnight, they were not residing, but we're not either implicitly allowing or refusing it. So I think if we are adding the condition that no more than 5 children at any time can reside within the property, we are covered in a way that is as inclusive as it is likely to need to be, would be my suggestion.
Yes, we can absolutely do that because it has to be the same as a family home. That's the whole point, that the children are there to live a normal life.
I think we've talked this through enough. We have an officer recommendation. Do I have a proposer?
Sorry, can I just clarify here? It's an office recommendation.
With the conditions?
With the conditions as added, and I don't know if the members would like the officer just to briefly recap on those conditions or if they're happy to go ahead and vote.
I think they're clear enough, personally. You've got them written down? Yeah. We can agree the conditions between Councillor Omani and myself, but they are written down as to what you said.
And the local ward councillors.
Yeah. Proposer, please. Councillor Wilson. Seconder, Councillor Whitcroft. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next application, I'm going to take number 6 ahead of number 5. So get the easy ones out the way before Sarita takes the stage. Pardon? I know. You always have the star on at the end.
Really sorry.
We saw it on the screen. And Q.
Okay, can you all hear okay? Okay, sorry about that. So this application at Camberley Theatre, it's been decided by the Planning Committee as the Borough Council is the applicant and there are no updates. So the proposal is for the installation of an air handling unit to the rear of the theatre, including a steel frame and timber-clad enclosure. The purpose behind this application is due to the failing RAC in the roof of the theatre and the need for any extra load on the roof to be removed. The existing air handling unit is located on the roof and therefore needs to be removed. And for the comfort of the audience and other users of the theatre, the air handling unit is required. So these are a couple of photos of the site. This is taken from the back of the theatre, where the proposal would be located. As you can, well, it's going to be going in here. It will be going on the site of 3 existing parking spaces, resulting in the loss of those spaces. At the moment, they're reserved only for theatre permit holders alone. They have got public car parks available very close to the site, and the loss of the spaces wouldn't have a negative impact on the effective running of the theatre. Highways Authority have not objected to the proposal. So these show the theatre from the front. As the proposal is going to be at the back, it wouldn't have an impact to the front of the theatre or on the Knoll Road street view. The image on the right is taken with the Ian Goodchild Centre in the foreground, which is immediately to the north of the theatre, and then looking southward down Knoll Road, you can see the High Cross Church, as well as part of the multi-storey in the far background. So that sort of demonstrates the variety of uses along Knoll Road. Immediately opposite the site, you've got these 2 buildings, St James's House, which is an office use, and Bradley Court, which has been converted to residential. There is a separation distance of approximately 38 metres between the built form of Camberley Theatre and Bradley Court, but the proposal is going to be to the back of the theatre. So you've got existing built form, Knoll Road as well, acting as an intervening feature. So that separation distance and the level of noise going on, it is not considered that it would result in an adverse noise impact. There was an environmental noise survey and a plant noise assessment submitted with the application. Environmental Health have seen this and they've raised no objection to the proposal. So the plan on the left shows a little more detail of the air handling unit. It's shown in green, and then the thicker black line around shows the enclosure of it. The enclosure is simply required to prevent trespassing into the plant area. And then the roof plan on the right shows where the 2 air ducts would be going. They will reach roof height, but they don't add to the load because they're not going to be physically weight bearing on top of the roof. So these plans show the elevations of the theatre. The top one shows the proposal as the enclosure. The bottom one shows the proposal as just the air handling unit. They're going to be around the back of house area of the theatre and considered to be in keeping with that appearance and use. They won't have an aesthetic impact on the front of the theatre or on the wider character of the area. And the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a relocation of an existing piece of plant, really, from the roof down onto the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Members, any questions? Councillor Noble.
Is there any change to the noise levels coming from the unit? As you said, I think you mentioned it was a new unit that was going in.
It will be a new unit going in. The old one is coming out. I cannot remember if there is going to be a change in the noise unit, the level of noise. The survey was conducted for it, and Environmental Health have assessed that and said that there won't be any negative impact resulting from it. I'm afraid I can't remember the levels of noise being emitted that existed and proposed.
Anyone else? No? Thank you. We have a recommendation. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Garrett, seconder Councillor Glowett. All those in favour of the officer recommendation?
I don't know.
I think I have to call the names out if it's not, it'd be easy to take those and not Sorry, because we'd have to find out what you would vote for, against or abstaining. Against. Are you happy with that, Chair? Or do you want me to, I can call them out if you like.
No, I think it's unanimous except for Councillor Wheeler, who's against it. Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sarita, you're on.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. This application relates to Phase 6D, and this is the biggest residential parcel that we have at Deep Cut. It's for 237 dwellings. So it is a significant proportion of what is going to be delivered at Deep Cut. And it comprises 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom dwellings. So to orientate, it's this one. This is the parcel we're talking about. And this is the application site to be considered. Members may recall that last week we dealt with 6C, which was over here, 3E, 4B and 4C, which is over here, and then obviously the care home right at the top. And this is the layout that we're looking at this evening. Now, it's quite an interesting layout because it sort of had two parts. We have the bit at this area, which is the sort of the loop roads up here and here that takes you up. And then at this point, we have a slight change of character. So we then go into a looser pattern of development. We have the apartment building here, which is the focal building for this part of the site. It also provides the link from the central sang up here to the southern sang over here. In the middle, we have an open space that comprises open space, a children's play space, a ball court, a kitchen garden area, just a general amenity space for the residents. And then down here, we have the big play space, which is the local equipped area of play down here. We have the flatted development on the frontage, which is obviously reflective of the higher density. As you'll notice, you can spot where the density plans tend to indicate where we should have the highest density because you'll find them here and here. Around the edges, which face onto the woodland, you have a much looser pattern of development and they tend to be detached or semi-detached houses. The two existing access points on Bracken Hill, as provided by Skanska, are the main access points into the site. And we have Phase 6B down here, which we are hoping to bring to you later this month. And obviously we've got 6C over here that was last month and 4F, which was August. The sangs here, the central sang is basically finished and they are just finishing the southern sang link, which is this one, into the southern sang here. You will also note that this developer is increasing the number of links. So again, we're trying to improve connectivity, legibility, accessibility to open space, and make the development as far as we can very cyclist friendly, pedestrian friendly. Within the parcel itself, the traffic speeds will be generally 20 miles per hour. That's the whole idea for Deep Cut as a whole. So this kind of thing, the scheme works in that context. We have a central mews here, so it's just access from this point, and we have little cul-de-sacs just coming off here and here. And this is a sort of a blow-up of the central open space. So we have our main east, north-south route here. We have the open space, we have the kiddies play space, which is the lap. We have our ball court, the kitchen bit, and the pergola. And then down at the other end, we have the local equipped area of play, which is in this area here. So it remains as sort of a landscaped entrance into the site. And these are just examples of some of the house types that are being proposed. So this is the coach house, which is the flat above the carports and garages. Then we have our two-bedroom houses, our two-bedroom terraces, our 2- and 3-bedroom terraces, 3-bedroom houses, 3-bedroom houses. Those are ones that are the ones on the rural edge more than anything else. Our 4-bedroom houses, here and here. And these are our apartment buildings. As with all things deep cut, they are around the 9.6, 9.9 mark. Again, we always have our issues with levels, so some will be a little bit higher, some will be a bit lower. And these are on the frontage on Bracken Hill, overlooking the Minden Valley. And then we have the apartment building in the middle. And these are just general street scenes. So these are the southern ones. So to orientate you, this is where the local equipped area of play will be, and this is going towards the central area. And this is the other side of the road. So down here is Mindenhurst, and we're going up towards the central area. And then on the other side, we're at the northern area. So this is one of the sides of the blocks of flats on the frontage. And this is proceeding up towards the central area. And this is the other side of the road. And again, this is the route between the central and the southern Sang. So this is the north-south route. So we have the open space, which is all in front of the apartment building here. So we have the central Sang over here, the southern Sang over here, and vice versa for the one at the top. This is the central Mews bit, so this bit's in here. So and that's basically, you've got cars going through it, but again, you've got pedestrian links, again, from the open space down in this, by the apartment building in the centre, down to the local equipped area of play. And those are to the rear of the apartment building, so that's sort of to the rear of the central apartment building at the top of the site. And these are the Sang edges. So as you can see, we've got more of an open character, more low-key. And we've been provided with some images from the applicant. So this is looking at the Bracken Hill frontage here, at the northern access point. And then this is the office, the central apartment building here. So we're looking towards the central Sang, and then we turn around and we're looking towards the southern Sang. And here's some photos. So this is an aerial photo of the site before everything was demolished. Nothing's left on the site now, it's all gone. So if you ever go up there now, and I believe the loop road is now open, so if you want to go and have a look and see how much has been demolished, it's an interesting view, really. So these are all gone. As you will see, this was formerly the military assault course. And there are some bits and pieces still left, so I don't know if they are still there, but they will be going. And this is a view of the northern access. So these trees are being kept, so the access point is in here. And then this is more detailed of it. Again, as with all things deep cut, we have a change in levels. This is the southern access. So this area here is going to be all part of the open space that includes the leap. And then this is just detailed photos of the southern access. Again, this is from within the site looking across. So this was phase 6C. Again, it just gives a sense of how elevated the site is when you're looking down into the Minden Valley. And this is just going clockwise around the site. So this is the central Sang over here. And you can see the remnants of the military assault course here. And again, so we're coming from over here, we're just coming round in a big circle. And this bit is where the southern Sang links, and southern Sang is beyond. You will see from the update sheet that we have had some discussions going on about the affordable housing provision. When we had discussions with our housing services manager, he had no objection with the numbers, because obviously that's in accordance with the legal agreement for 36. but the balance he had some concerns about. So we discussed this with the applicant, and you can see from the update sheet that the tenure has all changed. So we have a more balanced provision between the affordable rent and the social, the shared ownership. So there is an update to one of the plans to reflect that for condition 1. We have also got, you'll see, the updated version of the response to the County Highway Authority. Again, as per the agenda report, but there's a minor change to condition 14 that they wanted. The parking is to standard apart from 3 plots, but where we have that minor shortfall, we have 3 unallocated spaces right outside them. So in planning terms, it's considered that this is not going to result in material harm in planning in highway terms. Building relationships within the site are considered to be acceptable. They meet the space standard for the houses and also the RDG space standards for gardens. The recommendation is to grant, subject to the amended conditions on the update sheet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Sarita on this? Councillor Omani.
Good evening. Could you tell me what the percentage is for affordable housing on this entire development, and is it being met?
Short answer is when the development is built out, we've got one more parcel to come that has got affordable housing on it. On the basis that it meets the requirements of the Condition 9 submission that was agreed 2-3 years ago, and it does, the provision varies between 15 and 16% on the post that decision. In total, when you add it to the ones that were pre that decision, the overall will be 20% on deep cut. That will be the general, when you combine the built-out applications and also the ones that are subject to the condition.
So that's all type, shared ownership?
It's a mixture of shared ownership and affordable rent, because that was what the tenure was required for the condition. So that's what we've got.
So how does that percentage relate to the local plan that's active at the time that it was given?
It doesn't comply. And there was a very detailed and considered application that was brought to this committee to go through the viability. We had our financial viability consultant come and present to members to go through the figures that were set out. And that has resulted in the revised affordable housing structure that we have for deep cut, and this proposal complies with it.
Can you remind me what the original percentage should have been before we gave an exception?
I think it was 35%. Yes, 35%.
So we made a loss of 15% social housing in the borough.
The way that the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, works is that viability is something that is material to the planning authority. So it was very well debated, and there was, as you have rightly pointed out, a lot of disappointment that that wasn't being met. But this particular scheme complies with the requirements of Condition 9 in accordance with the affordable strategy agreed a couple of years ago.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Apologies if you've covered this before, because it's probably applies to all of the deep cut. So the local area of play and the local equipped area of play have got play equipment in it. So who will be taking over responsibility for the maintenance of that? Will it be a management company, or will the council adopt it?
Management company.
The residents will all pay a monthly subscription to that?
That is my understanding.
Councillor Gowett.
The land in front of the main bit in the middle, that's going to be for kitchen gardens, and it doesn't actually look that big. You know, when I was sort of looking at it and comparing it with people's gardens and things. So I wondered if there really was room for all those things in that space.
The plans show it. So as an amenity space, there is sufficient space to provide the open space. The requirement for the lap has a minimum required of 100 square metres. And then there is the ball court, and then there's the garden area. So in our view, yes, there is sufficient space. Notwithstanding that, you know, in terms of open space opportunities, we have the Sangs, and then further down the hill we have obviously the local equipped area of play as well. So in terms of meeting the recreational requirements of residents, I think the scheme does provide that.
Thank you.
Any more questions? This is the penultimate. We're almost.
For this year.
Yeah.
This is the penultimate for this year.
Yeah. Congratulations.
That would be nice.
Members, we have a recommendation. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Whitcroft and a seconder. Councillor Omani. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
That's unanimous.
Excellent, thank you. That concludes today's business. Thank you very much for your participation and have a good evening.